Keith Andrews hasn't just stabilised Brentford this season, he's turned the Gtech into the most tactically uncomfortable away trip in the Premier League. If we rewind to the summer, this had the potential to unravel very quickly. Thomas Frank left after 7 years, Brian Mbeumo and Johan Wissa departed, Christian Norgard moved on as well, and Mark Flecken. That's leadership, goals and structure all stripped out at once. For a club with the lowest wage bill in the division, that kind of turnover normally means regression. But instead, Brentford are 7th. They're clear of the relegation conversation and they're looking up, not down. And what's fascinating is that this hasn't happened through chaos or momentum, it's happened through Keith Andrews' tactical clarity. We need to talk about the Gtech properly, because this is where the identity really shows. Teams don't enjoy going there. Since August 2024, Brentford have won half of their home matches. From April last year, they've lost just 3 times there. Arsenal, Chelsea and Tottenham have dropped points there, and Manchester United and Newcastle both lost there recently. Andrew said earlier this season that if teams want something at the Gtech, they're going to have to earn it. And that wasn't a throwaway line, it was a warning. Brentford make games physical, compact and draining. You don't get rhythm against them and you don't get comfort. What Andrews has done really cleverly is evolve the Thomas Frank blueprint. Brentford are still direct when space appears, they still press aggressively, they're still dangerous from set pieces, but there's slightly more flexibility now. They're more comfortable sitting off at times, they're more willing to change defensive height depending on the opponent. This isn't a side locked into one idea, it's a side built around principles of compactness, aggression, transitions and chaos in the right moments. Take Arsenal as the clearest example. Brentford limited them to 1 shot in the first half. That hasn't happened to Arsenal since Manchester City beat them 5-0 back in 2021, and that tells you how disruptive this performance was. Out of possession, Brentford lined up in a 4-2-3-1, but it didn't stay static. One centre-back, and it was usually Sepp van den Berg, was comfortable stepping into the midfield zones. Jordan Henderson shielded central lanes intelligently, and the wide players tucked in to block passing options. So this wasn't passive defending, it was calculated interference. When Brentford do press high though, they do it with purpose. Again, those central lanes are blocked, and the aim is to force you wide, then collapse on the touchline. It's aggressive, but it's not reckless. Brentford press in waves rather than constantly chasing. Against Arsenal, that meant man-to-man moments. Michael Coyote followed his man deep, Keane Lewis-Potter had a very specific job of tracking Jurrien Timber's advanced positioning, and Arsenal were pushed into long passes much earlier than they wanted. In fact, David Raya ended up going long repeatedly, which is not how Arteta wants to build. And that is known as tactical manipulation. Brentford forced Arsenal to play Brentford's game. What's interesting statistically is that Brentford's possession has actually dropped compared to the Frank era. It's around 40% now, but that is intentional. They're comfortable sitting in a compact low block. The double pivot sits just in front of the centre-backs, distances between players remain tight, and the team stays narrow centrally. Only Bournemouth have scored more counter-attacking goals this season, and Brentford rank amongst the highest for shots following counter-attacks. They soak up the pressure and then strike quickly. And yes, sometimes it is route 1, but it's still not hopeful football. Those long balls into Igor Thiago are targeted. The Brazilian pins centre-backs, runs the channels relentlessly and provides a constant outlet. Brentford also play one of the highest proportions of forward passes in the league. Another thing is that even when those long passes don't stick and completion rates hover around 40%, they're positioned to win second balls immediately, and that's the detail. They don't mind losing the first duel if they're set up to win the next one. Van den Berg's long passing has been particularly impressive, completing a remarkably high percentage compared to most defenders in this style. That diagonal switch can change the point of attack instantly. Igor Thiago deserves his own section in this because he is central to everything. 17 goals this season tells you everything you need to know about his finishing, but his movement matters just as much. He drifts into channels, isolates defenders in transition and keeps making runs even when he's physically matched. Against Arsenal, he was well defended in direct duels, but he kept creating structural stress. So late in games, when opponents push higher and commit bodies forwards, he becomes more dangerous. He isn't just a striker, he is the release valve for Brentford's entire system. Now we need to talk about the chaos factor, especially from set pieces. Michael Coyote's long throw has become one of the most effective weapons in the league. Brentford have scored more goals from throw-ins than any other side since 2022, and that isn't an accident. It's been quite well reported that Andrews was Brentford's set-piece coach before becoming manager, so he understands the marginal gains here. Against Arsenal, their equaliser came from a long throw situation. It creates disorder in the box with flick-ons, second balls and ricochets. Mikel Arteta even admitted how difficult that chaos is to defend. Andrews wants games to feel uncomfortable in those moments. He wants unpredictability in controlled areas. Transitions are where this side really hurts you. Against Arsenal, Brentford registered 6 direct attacks, which is the joint most anyone has managed against them this season. And those transitions aren't just one pass and hope, there's layering. A wide runner stretches the back line, Thiago pins centrally, a late midfielder arrives into the space that opens, it's rehearsed speed. They don't counter in panic, they counter with structure. Defensively, there are still areas to improve. They've conceded more goals than the underlying expected goals suggest they should have. Their XGA is also lower than the actual goals conceded, which indicates that the structure is doing its job more often than not. When protecting a lead, Andrews is willing to shift into a more rigid 5-3-2 shape, and that extra centre-back provides security. That adaptability is key. They can press high, drop deep, go direct, build short when needed. Brentford aren't locked into an ideology. So that is why the Gtech is arguably the hardest away game tactically in the Premier League this season. Brentford don't let elite teams dictate terms. They block central build-up, they drag matches into duels, they attack transitions ruthlessly and they weaponise set pieces. You might dominate the ball there, but you won't dominate comfort. And against a side built on aggression and organisation, one lapse can undo you instantly. For me personally, I don't think this is a fluke season. It's not momentum, it's just the evolution. Andrews didn't try and reinvent Brentford. He understood what made them competitive and sharpened it. For a manager in his first senior job, I think that's incredibly impressive. And right now, Brentford are making the Premier League miserable for everyone else. So what do you think? Is this season a fluke, or is Andrews building something that can actually be maintained at Brentford? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments. That is where I'm going to end today's podcast, but there are plenty of others that you can go and listen to. For more content, be sure to check out my website, that's inmrfootball.co.uk. On there you can find match reports, live blogs, club updates and so much more. And if that's not enough, INMR is also on X and Instagram, so you can follow me on both of those platforms for even more daily football content. Thank you very much for listening, and I will see you in the next one.